So I'm Skip Bartholomew. I'm the third generation of the management and owners of Wayside Press. My granddad, Harold George Bartholomew, was in at the beginning of Wayside Press 100 years ago. He came out of Kelowna. He was, by trade, he was a typositor, typesetter, so all handset type. As such, he set the type for the business, and his partner, Ansel, he and Ansel ran the business. My dad, Harold Desmond, he hated Desmond. So they were both Bart, so Bart and Bart Jr. Dad also, his trade also was typesetter, but I never ever saw him typeset. He was just managing and selling. And, he actually bought the first offset printing press in the Okanagan in 1949. And he spent a week down at Vancouver in one of the print shops learning how to operate offset press, and then spent a lot of time on an old multilith, second-hand multilith, figuring out how to run it, how to make it work. And this would have been upstairs above the Okanagan Cafe, as it was at the time. Upstairs above that. And he used to make, when he made his plates, he had to coat the plates himself, so it's not like pre-sensitized plates like we get today.
But I remember Granddad only once. And so he's the one who, of course, started Wayside in 21. And I only remember him one time, and it was when Mom went into the office to see Dad. And it was in the old flower shop back then on 31st. And I was really timid and shy, and we walked in, and Adolf had just started working there, one of the pressmen. And he saw me and he went like this, and so I kind of went over there, and he pulled out this stick of double mint gum, which I'd never seen before. But it was this bright lime green covering with shiny foil at the end. Oh, I just thought that was the coolest thing. So I walked back, and Granddad, he said, he's quite a stern face, didn't he, right? And he said, "What have you got there?" And I said, "Gum from Adolf." He whipped it out of my hand. Oh, no. And he said, "That'll make your stomach stick together." And he threw it in the garbage.
Oh, man.
And sadly, that's my only memory of him, like really scared and really intimidated. But obviously that sternness and high standard is what got his business going and off the ground, so it served well, I'm sure.
Being at the old store down on 30th Street, and Dad had an office in behind the store, and the old invoice style where you had to kind of wind it and get the next invoice that came up, and the Wayside logo, really, I was impressed with that even as a kid, because I just thought, wow, that's really cool. With the person on the old press, the old press, and so no, I can remember it very clearly. So a lot of the stationery that we had around at the time was all branded Wayside, and certainly I remember very well.
Bart was great, actually. He was a real people person, and he wanted things done right. And people really respected him, and things got done the way he wanted to. He ran a really good business, actually.
And sometimes he'd bring home work if the bindery was really busy, and there was folding. We'd have all 5 of us kids around the table folding, and had to be perfect and just right. He showed us how to do it, which was great training, because that's, I think, where I learned anyway, a lot of it's quality, and it's got to be good, it's got to look just tickety-boo.
Earliest I remember is going into Grandpa's office. He always had a little candy thing on the desk, so that's what we were excited about going into as little kids. I would have been pretty young, I don't know, 5, something like that. We'd go in, and he'd have this big brown desk and an old mock-up of one of the old printers on his desk. So I remember seeing that. I remember the candy that would be there, and that's what I remember then. And I would help put type away and make lead bars. Got to the point of being full-time prior to school being done. so I may or may not have graduated. But my dad owned a business, so I just fell into that business, and then I spent most of my time on equipment, so I did a 4-year apprenticeship in the bindery, and then after that was complete, went into the press room for another 4-year apprenticeship. So I felt like I was at the bottom of the totem pole for a good 8 years, but it got better after that. Yeah, so I think the biggest thing was the smell. So I would walk in, and as a kid, it would be really hard to breathe. It's totally normal now, but the ink and the paper just have this very unique smell that just stands out.
So at 12, I was working 2.5 hours a day, learning typesetting. Now, learning typesetting at first, it was taking the spacing and sorting out the spacing, put it back in the cabinet, because except for the linotype, everything was handset type. Like all of the drawers in this room over here, it's all handset type. Someone's got to put it away. So that's how I learned the California case, is putting away type. Never got to be as good as Granddad.
Most of us kids, there were 5 of us, so younger brother and sister also, we all started in the bindery for a short time. Although I don't really remember doing that much. I started right out of high school. Dad said, if you come and work for 2 years here and commit to 2 years, then you can go and do whatever you want to do. And you can practice your shorthand, and I'll dictate letters to you. That didn't go so well.
And that comes back to, why did I sell the business?
I was actually managing a movie theater. I was managing the Famous Players, and we had the town theater as well. So I was an assistant manager to both theaters at that time. So I worked nights pretty much, and I needed something to do during the day. And my eldest brother actually was doing deliveries at Wayside, and said they needed a delivery driver for a period of time. So I said, oh, that'll be good. I can do that during the day and still do the movie theater at night. So I started at Wayside doing deliveries, and I'd come in and sweep the floors, they'd have me sweep the sidewalk in the current building all the way around every morning. And then I would go in and count paper and things like that, whatever they basically told me to do. And then I'd go out on deliveries at 1 o'clock in the company Volvo. What it was is a Volvo station wagon. And it was actually Skip's family car that he'd bring to work, and that's what I did deliveries in. So, and then I'd tour around Lumbee, Lavington, Armstrong, and do deliveries. So that's how it all began for me.
I started there as a junior sales rep, and it was funny, I remember for the first month of working there, my boss at the time, Brent McDougall, asked me every day. He was surprised that I was turning up for work. He said, at some point you're just going to stop turning up, you're not going to come.
Nobody really gets it until you go in and you start looking around and you go, wow, like, they do this here? Like it was like, I was totally ignorant to printing until and then that's what fascinated me about it right away, was all these different machines and what they could do. So it was pretty cool.
I loved it. I loved the job from the very beginning, and did well in sales, really enjoyed the interaction with clients.
Before I ran the press starting in grade 9, I came in after school to do cleanup, janitorial stuff. I graduated in June of '80 from VSS, and in September of '80 I started my apprenticeship on the presses. 40 years plus part-time, 3 years.
So I applied to a box number in the newspaper at that time and got called in for an interview, and Bart interviewed me, and then I was hired customer sales rep for many, many years at Wayside, almost 30 years.
When I graduated, there were probably 15 people in our class at Ryerson, and Wayside had a little bulletin on the board there saying, looking for an estimator to come out to Vernon, BC. And so I thought at the time, go out to Vernon for a year or two, and then come back to Toronto. And came out here and never looked back.
Early on, I mean, there was a big push for all of us to get to know the equipment and have a good understanding of it. And it's funny looking in the room behind me and seeing some of the old equipment that I still remember. Neil and I were just talking prior to this. I mean, all of this gear was still in use when I started, obviously when Neil was there. And today it's funny because we really spend very little time worrying about or learning about the equipment that we have. It's really more about what does it do for you? You know, what is the equipment going to do for our clients? My early recollection of Neil, other than his striking long hairdo at the time, which was there, I should say, a beautiful flow of hair, drummer hair, was the original mullet. If we service our client really well, then the rest will come. That was how I felt that the relationship started off. And to this day, I feel that we're both in 100% sync on that.
It's in our psyche on how we react to customers. Probably, 98% of the time, if somebody asked us the same question on how to deal with a customer in a certain way, we'd have exactly the same answer. And I think there's another factor. Richard and I are just naturally competitive, and there'd be a challenge that would go kind of back and forth in some ways, but it would always make Wayside better at the end of the day. So yeah, I mean, those competitive juices they're still there for both of us.
After Dad left and Neil and Richard, Neil was the operations guy, Richard was the sales guy, and I was the finance guy. And I kind of left it to Neil and Richard to run the business. And if they couldn't agree, then I make the decision.
Became basically two vice presidents for Skip. Didn't really get involved in the operations, more in the numbers, and he just said to Richard and I, you just take this and run with it. So that's what we did.
So they had a pretty high degree of autonomy, which kind of scared me to the point where what happens if one of these guys leaves? Where am I going to be at? Which was the point when I started to think about, in 2007 probably, I was thinking about what am I going to do to make sure these guys are hooked and stay here.
So the two of us really saw, okay, there's an opportunity here to sort of get into this. And then really Richard and I started talking to Skip about, what are you going to do? What's your plan? What's our succession plan? We started talking a lot about that. And he said, well, I think the kids are going to buy it and buy it for me and whatever.
So then I come along as the third generation. Third generation is the one that usually loses a family business. And I was also very aware of that. And here I am thinking about a fourth generation. So that was another reason for thinking about Neil and Richard and moving it on to someone who's going to take a little more risk.
So that was kind of his deciding factor to say, okay, I've got two young, ambitious, eager kids here, probably weren't kids at the time, that want this thing. Why wouldn't I sell this? And that was probably 2007 of when it all sort of came together, and he sold us the company at that point.
It was a difficult decision for me. It was certainly difficult for my aunt, for Kay. It was a betrayal. A betrayal to the family to.
And she'd tell you straight up.
Oh yeah, she would.
She didn't mess around.
Kay was always involved in the business, always at the shop, so she worked full-time for her whole life.
She was one of those people in the business that was behind the scenes but knew everything that was going on. So she was very aware.
Not enough productivity.
Yeah. So she would give you her little 2 cents worth often about what was going on in the business. And the two of us, we clicked very early on for whatever reason. But she walked right up until, I want to say she was 90 or something. So yeah, we got this kind of interesting relationship that that sort of formed over the years?
Kay was, I don't know, Kay was a legend in this town. I mean, if you go to Intermezzo restaurant, they have special candle holders on the table in Kay's memory because she went there so often and supported them so often. My husband and I went for a walk around the trail out by Swan Lake the other day, and there's a bench in memory of Kay Bartholomew there because Kay was huge with the birding. She'd go out every year and do bird counts and, was big on the Naturalist Club for many years and, real big supporter of the arts in town.
I was worried that there would be a change, for sure, but there wasn't one. I was very impressed that the family values that Dad instilled, they were all there, and they stayed there. So I was very thankful for that, for sure.
I feel the same way, for sure. I do, Neil. I'm really grateful that we got somebody who is very family oriented and fair and kind, and it was not a hard change at all.
And I think it was a pure desire to prove ourselves. We were both young. This great desire to rule the world. I mean, I say that jokingly, but that was the mentality I think that we both had, is that yes, we can do it, and we can do it well.
We can do this. We can actually grow, this business if we work together. So I think it was like a production guy and a sales guy kind of coming together and going, okay, let's do this.
They worked their way up through the company. Neil started as delivery, I think, and then worked into the bindery, and then supervisor, and then plant manager, and then he ended up, so they've earned their dues, those two guys. And they kept it going with the same, basis of, the honesty, the family values, the culture, very important to them. So I think that's what kept it going so well.
Right from when I started with Bart, and then his son Skip took over, and Neil and Richard, that family is a priority.
We call it the culture, the Wayside culture. We had a strong culture, and the boys just kept that going even after Skip retired.
When Richard and Neil took it on, to me it was just an extended part of that family. They had both worked for Wayside for however many years, and although their sons didn't want to step into that role, having two employees that were such long-term employees step into it, to me that spoke volumes.
I think that was always a goal of mine, always wanted to be an owner. And I think that, I believe it was Skip, and I don't know if he'll remember, I don't know exactly how it went down, but I actually told him that I wanted to sit in his chair one day. And I'm just cocky and young and foolish maybe, but that was like the thing. That's when if I got there, then I made it. And I remember when I actually took his office at some point, I can't remember the year, and I was actually sitting in that chair that Skip always sat in.
Skip was away for a week, and so Neil just moved into the office. So.
Just to dream a little bit.
Yeah.
But I remember that moment of thinking, I've made it. This is big. Okay, now what's next?
Yeah, and I would certainly say that we discussed it a number of times. I think that we both recognised that we had the perfect formula for a business. We had front of house and back of house. And I remember at the time exploring other opportunities, not out of desire, but potentially out of necessity. And then it all really just sort of came into place that Skip said, all right, I'm actually ready to step aside, and here's what you guys are going to pay me. And we said yes, and been a nail biter ever since. So
there's the actual family that started it, and then there's another family, which are very connected in a sense. But if you look back to the years that people have been there, even though you get somebody like, say, Ron or John or Jeanette, or these people that worked there for 40 years, 44 years, and 42 years, that is family for us in a sense. But they weren't actual family, but they were. This isn't good for video. But there's still that family element. Like we had a connection with quite a few people in there that we still see around, and some are still working and some aren't. So it still has that feeling.
We took our wives out for dinner and at Phoenix Steakhouse and ordered a bottle of champagne, and I just remember that feeling of pure joy and excitement and great anticipation of the future. Unfortunately, we're only about 4 months away from the biggest economic meltdown of recent history.
I think the economy's been a challenge depending on whether it be, we bought the Kamloops Sprinter in 2001 and within a week or just before the deal closed, the planes hit World Trade Center. And so here we just bought a brand new, or a business, had 20 people working there, and all of a sudden the economy just takes this huge dive down. And so yeah, those are the challenges where you gotta rise up, make change. We ended up, it took us 2 or 3 years where we consolidated manufacturing into Vernon. So we're trying to get people to move from Kamloops to Vernon, and all those things were extremely hard. Lots of days on the road and and away, and trying to make adjustments to dealing with things. We've been through lots of those peaks and valleys, and some big highs and some big lows, and it's all about hard work and making real tough decisions when you need to, and trying to rise up out of these things. And I don't think there was ever a no-go. We always had we're big problem solvers in a sense that we'd never give up on something. We'd always think of a way over it, under it, around it, whatever. We just, okay, well, let's try this, let's try that, let's try, So we just didn't have a lot of stop in us.
The mark of great people is not how well you do when things are good, but when things are down. How do you pick yourself up? How do you rebuild? How do you get back on track? And we've had to get up and dust ourselves off a few times out of the dirt. We're sitting here today making our 100th year anniversary video. I mean, that's, do you call it a video? You probably don't even call it a video. Documentary.
Is that what it is?
Documentary.
Yeah.
So,
Wow.
and I think anybody throughout any of their work or personal life recalls certain things. I mean, so good, bad, and a lot in between. So it's pretty impressive. And when I look at it, and I think that Neil and I have owned it for 12 years, 13 years here, I feel like my part in the 100-year history is significant.
Wow, that was like solid, man.
Oh, it's a firework!
And Richard started to see retirement as an opportunity, and I have no retirement in my future. I just don't see it at this point. So for me, it was, my risk tolerance is very high. Let's buy stuff, let's buy, whatever, we buy other businesses. So we bought EPC, we bought Lakeside, we were acquiring, and that's I like that. And it gives me growth and sort of more control of the market and things like that. Lakeside had a plant in Vernon as well, and one in Salmon Arm, one in Revelstoke. And so called him up and said, let's talk, and he was open to it, and he was, thinking about retirement a little bit down the road, and yeah, just kind of clicked together quite nicely from there. And before we knew it, now we've got, shop in Salmon Arm, one in Revelstoke, and it was a nice addition.
And for the first 2 years, we had tons of meetings, don't get me wrong, on how I did things, how he did things, and why it was going to work and what wasn't going to work. Some of them were very passionate meetings, and we worked it all out, and it ended up being the right fit for everybody. I was surprised when Neil knocked on my door, and I was happy at the same time. It was really good. Timing was great.
The technology that we invested in, when I started, and when Neil and I took over as VPs, we were predominantly print. We opened up a signage division, which is today grown to it's in a separate facility.
20 years in business, home-based business on East Vernon Road, and we were very busy, yeah. Well, thankfully, Jan Robinson came to one of my Alzheimer's dances, and we talked about work and business, and I had mentioned that I was considering, just thinking about making some changes, and she went back and talked with Neil, and the rest is history.
First time that Nancy and I sat down, there was just this wonderful connection. Same values, morals, and all that stuff. And it just, the conversation was easy from there. And she brought, we were more of displays in large format prior to Nancy coming on board. Nancy she's science. And that's what she brought to the table, was a bigger picture of what a sign is rather than just a poster you slap on the wall.
I would say the all-time favorite has been the 12-foot by 30-foot exterior sign at NONA, the North Okanagan Neurological Association. It's a dimensional sign that actually won the Canadian Sign competition for exterior signage. Wow. And that was for across Canada. Really proud of that. It was definitely a teamwork. Everybody was involved, including Neil's mom. She's amazing. Scotty, yeah, we had a great time.
Doing that sign for the Nona building,
yeah,
it turned out to be more, we call it a sign, but it's not a sign. But
it's a work of art, I think.
I know, we're pretty proud of it, and so it was really neat to sort of partner up on that.
That was great.
And I think it just turned out amazing.
Yeah.
We were so proud of that.
And
I couldn't make the event. I heard you were there. My mom was actually there.
Was she? Good for her.
And but yeah, she was totally thrilled with that whole thing. So it was really neat to be part of that. So.
Yeah. Oh no, your team did a fantastic job of that. It really meant a lot to us as a family. It really, it just had some things that we knew about when we saw different parts of the sign, and maybe others won't. But it definitely meant a lot to us for sure.
We would have never been able to accomplish that without sort of the Nancy Wilds of the world bringing that vision to life. So she really does care about wanting the best for that client.
Print for us, you talk about print volume, has probably remained fairly static over the years. It's the signage and the responsive marketing that have grown exponentially, that's given us our revenue growth, and a lot of that has actually fed print. We do a lot more DM campaigns and so forth, which is heavily print driven. So technology has helped print, but to your point, the print has changed. I mean, certainly we're doing different things today than we used to do.
It's all about diversifying and trying to be sort of a one-stop shop for customers. So they don't. Lots of customers don't like shopping around. They want to deal with somebody that they trust and that's going to help them, and we just check all those boxes for them, and away we go. Yeah, so long term, this is a client that really stems from Peerless Printers when we took over Kamloops, and Co's being a client where we've done everything for them, all their annual reports, everything. They've really allowed us to, we've designed all of their pieces as well with, they've really allowed us to sort of, go a little crazy with some of their designs. They've done some incredible stuff that we've designed for them, and it's been great to sort of show off some of the things that we can do when you have a client that allows you to go a little crazy on the designs and things like that. So, but yeah, they've just been a great customer for a number of years.
I really loved working with Cal Tire. I think Cal Tire has that really cool culture too, you know, kind of a family culture with Tom and now Robert at the helm, you know, and you can feel that.
Vernon's been blessed with some really great business people. I mean, you know, whether it's Wayside or Toco or Riverside or Cal Tire, we've been very fortunate to have a lot of really good, solid family businesses come out of this town, and it's nice that we can learn from each other. So.
There'll come a day when I retire, and I need to talk to you about that too. There'll come a day when I retire when nobody's going to look back and say, oh, Richard put in, you know, 12,000 orders, or, you know, it was $35 million in sales, or, you know, this is how many, you know, brochures he did or whatever. It's all going to be relationship based. It's going to be the relationship with staff. It's going to be a relationship with the clients, and it's going to be a relationship with Neil that, you know, that you end up saying not goodbye to, but, you know, so long to. And those are the tough things, but it's the staff that have made the business what it is today.
You know, we started probably talking a couple of years before it happened, and then it closed when COVID hit, of all things. But great timing.
And I felt that probably after I'd had that 3 or 4 months at Wayside and knew that was going to be a long-term deal for me, was that I needed to invest. I needed to completely invest myself in the community.
Okay, that's a really big soft spot for me, and that was a really big deciding factor with joining the Wayside team, because it is important to me, and I was so impressed with how generous Wayside is and has been for many, many years, with so many community events, so many groups and organizations.
Very, very community minded. I think that's another reason why he's been so successful over the years, and his growth of the company in Vernon was so rapid because he's so community orientated, and it shows. It shows in how he cares for his staff.
The ability to be able to stay here really is a big part of it for me. Is the, you know, yes, I went to Kamloops for a couple of years, but I get to live in Vernon. I didn't have to leave. You know, growing up here, lots of my friends moved away, and most of them are trying to come back. You know, they really see the value, and I think, trying to keep it together all day here. You know, being part of the community in that way, and actually, I guess, humbled in a sense, damn it, humbled in a sense that I can be part of Wayside and be able to give back. Being in a unique position to be a business that can give a lot back to the community, and knowing that you're supporting, darn it, knowing that you're supporting, whether it's, you know, the Vernon Jubilee Hospital Foundation, that you can actually put your name up there to say, hey, you know, we are really helping lots of people in this community in different ways. So that's very rewarding for me, obviously. And I'm just honored to be able to be part of something that can do that.
It's a small town, has a small town feel to it, but that really appeals to a lot of people. But I think what we will see over the next number of years is Vernon changing, and probably changing fairly significantly, from the standpoint that I feel in time this will become a bit of a tech hub. I think there'll be lots of things to keep our community growing, but I feel that there's a tremendous opportunity with technology, and yeah, once that flywheel starts to catch, I think it'll be pretty significant.
And even in our business, we have this whole technology side to it. So we're not just a printer anymore. You know, there's that whole technology side. So they create some amazing things for us, and automation, and they do some great things for our clients too. So I see that happening, and I see our business transitioning of, you know, printing is just something we do.
Yeah.
And it's more of the how can we help our clients get better, grow, all those types of things. So yeah, I totally see that technology side.
I think Neil now at the helm is doing a really good job, and it's a really important company to Vernon now. When you look at how they've expanded with the signage and everything else that they do, I think they're very, very important to this community, and very important to a lot of big clients that are still with us after 100 years.
The biggest plus is just the people that work here.
Oh yeah, Vernon was the best. It's the best place.
You know, family businesses, you know, are, you know, a good deal of the Canadian and world economy are made up of family businesses. They're very important to you know, to the well-being of communities. They provide employment and do the sort of things around supporting communities in ways that they can. So yeah, I just feel very, quite frankly, very humbled, and I feel very fortunate and grateful.
It's one of those stories that has been talked about at Wayside for many years, and we all, is this really true?
Yeah, it is. He had a letter from Mr. Bartholomew, and he said it really captured what was the essence of what we were trying to capture in our aim regarding our relationship with our suppliers. And so there was a time, I think, where Archie thought maybe he'd go looking around at other printing companies, and Mr. Bartholomew wrote a very good letter stating why he thought that it was, you know, good that Cal Tire stayed with Wayside, and obviously it made the point, and that relationship and the business stayed intact. But Archie did comment on that. He said, "I wish I had saved that, because it really did articulate how companies should be treating each other." So.
I know Bart was famous for writing these letters.
Was he?
So
Oh, I see.
I don't know how many clients he wrote them to, but that's really nice to hear that is a true story. It's all about adding value, and you know, a client sticks with you for, you know, 40, 50 years or longer is because they see value and you're helping them, and you're, you know, being more of a consultant than a vendor, you know, being a friend. People want to, you know, talk to their friends about how, you know, business and all those types of things. And I think it's just a natural fit for us to be able to help them with that.
I think that another thing just on from that, it's a good testament to certainly to Neil, and I'll ride in on his coattails on that. We've had lots of other companies approach us asking for us to buy them out, because they like the model, they like us, they know how we treat people. We know, you know, there's that respect and just wonderful culture, and so that's, you know, a great testament to us as well on that.
100 years, it's mind-blowing in so many ways when you think of that in a business. A trophy mark that, you're right, not a lot of businesses can do hit. I think it speaks a lot for Neil and for Richard, for Skip, for the Bartholomew family, how they've grown it, what they've done, what changes they've made to stay on top of technology and on top of innovation and just those different things, that it's pretty amazing.
So I would say that there was three really difficult periods of time for us, and we navigated our way through it. We didn't think that we would on certainly one of those occasions, I'm not sure whether I could have come out of that on my own if I had been on my own. And I've said that to you a number of times, it's funny to me when you work with somebody so closely. I would say that over the course of our ownership together, Neil and I were closer at the start. We were better friends at the start. But there comes a time where you go through so much stress together that it's hard to, you need separation at some point. And we had that time when you talked to me about going back into sales, and I fought that for a year. 3. Yeah. But it felt like a year.
It felt like 5.
It felt like 5. We've been very good about listening to each other. When I approached you, was a year and a half ago, maybe 2 years ago, to exit ownership, there was a great sense of relief, because I was really worried about how that was going to come across, that oh man, I'm leaving, and like usual, it's funny because you're very emotional about this stuff, but yet you're very stoic, right? You're very, you have the ability to plow through stuff. And for me, it's summarized, but I couldn't have gone through this with anyone else.
Richard and I first started to talk about me buying out his shares. It was more of the, I don't want him to go anywhere. He's an extremely valuable part of the company in the fact that he is a big generator of revenue, and the fact that he sees opportunities that a lot of people don't see, and he ventures into areas that people don't think about, or he has conversations with clients that other people just can't have those conversations. So
we do a staff meeting every month, and I think there's very few that go by without me shedding a tear of some kind. It used to bug me, and just more so because I couldn't get out what I wanted to say. Now I'm getting kind of used to it. You got to have great people, and those great people have to like working with each other. And if people don't like working with each other, it just doesn't work. So, we've got an incredible group of people that enjoy working together and feed off each other. All of the people that work at Wayside are really what makes Wayside. It's not a Neil or a Richard or a Bartholomew, or it is the group as a whole that really makes it makes it good. Every month I read out customers' comments to all the employees, and every month I have positive comments from several clients, and they just keep coming. And those are the ones that I'm getting shared. There's lots of verbal that goes on. And that's all a testament to the people that we have and the effort that they put in. And one of the big things that was said earlier is, it's a stressful business, high pressure. You're trying to manufacture a high quality product in record time. And that takes a lot of skill and talent, and it's not something to take on lightly. We got great people. I've got lots of great stories over the years. I feel lucky to, oh, goodness me, to have kind of fallen into it in a sense, and then be part of this. Be part of this 100 years of a celebration, be part of that. It's pretty special.